Buy Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
Lanka tukama වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, governance wrongs and workers' rights. Education Minister says government is reaping what current opposition sowed as State Minister Thondaman takes up the mantle for plantation workers.
People living in the plantation, all of them are assets of the nation. Many companies are under the impression they are assets of the plantation, and that is not right. They have lost the human aspect.
Technology for the greater good. The GMOA highlights the importance of a real-time virus mapping system in Sri Lanka.
With the real-time data, we hope the final touches of the whole island map will be finished within the weekend.
We've got our eye on you. The World Bank says Sri Lanka's challenges top of mind with an eye out for sustainable recovery opportunities. Budget focus. SME sector representative says sector remains content but not completely satisfied.
Consistency of policy, I think that's one of the key factors that was displayed. I was hoping there would be some element of labour reforms, but it was not addressed.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Friday, the 27th of November, 2020.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanaka. Let's start off by taking a look at Parliament. The battle for a wage increase for plantation workers has been a long, drawn-out one, with regional plantation companies vehemently opposing the government's recent budget proposal to increase the daily wages to 1,000 rupees. The government, in response, has threatened to re-evaluate its agreements with any company refusing to get on board with the new system. In Parliament today, State Minister of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure, Jeevan Thondaman, cited the loss of the human aspect by the plantation companies as the main reason for low productivity levels and worker dissatisfaction. That wasn't the only subject to be broached during today's parliamentary sitting, with Minister of Education Professor G.L. Piris stating in the House that the controversial Batikalo campus in Punani will be taken under the purview of the government.
State Minister of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure Jeevan Thondaman in Parliament today took aim at plantation company representatives, citing infrastructure costs as a reason for their inability to bear the government's daily wage hike, revealing that the full costs were borne solely by the government and not by the companies themselves.
What I would first like to say, Honourable Member, is the asset management of the plantation companies. Because if you research a bit, you would find out that out of the 167 factories that are there in Norelia district, 35 are closed. And there needs to be accountability for these 35 that have been closed. And what is the future plans for that? Apart from that, with relation to the factories, I need to speak about the modernization of the factories, tea and rubber. Then I would like to address a few issues that were spoken today in the Parliament. For example, in the opposition, Honourable Parliamentarian had mentioned that a spokesperson for the planters had said, we can't give the rupees 1,000. I would like to remind him of something, that the person who had mentioned that we can't give the 1,000 is the same person who had given a statement that they are the ones who built 39,000 houses for the estate workers. I would like to go on record and say that 39,000 houses that have built for the plantation workers, all the money had come from the government funds and not a single cent has come from the company, in terms of not only just housing but also roads, hospitals, schools, etc. And that would actually make his credibility quite questionable. Also, one more thing that I would like to explain here is that the productivity does need to be increased in the plantation sector, and for the productivity to be improved in the plantation sectors, first workers' welfare must be looked after, because only if the worker is content, the productivity will increase and thereby the plantation company survives. Many people consider that the factories, the plantation, the people living in the plantation, all of them are assets of the nation, and that is something that must be followed through, because right now many companies are under the impression they are assets of the plantation, and that is not right. They have lost the human aspect of the company, and that is one of the reasons why this plantation is declining. What I would like to state here is that, as even the opposition MPs have stated before, which I welcome, all the plantation ministers who have been in the seat before have failed, and some have failed miserably. But we have a feeling we will be able to restart what was once the golden age of Sri Lanka, with the tea being the backbone of the Sri Lankan economy.
In the meantime, the opposition sought a clarification from the Minister of Education, Professor G.L. Pires, on whether the government would allow Sharia law to be taught as a subject, following which the minister stated that extremism was an issue brought to life through the inaction of the previous regime and inherited by the government.
මේ ආයතනයේ විසින් පැවැත්වීමට නියමිතව තිබූ පාඨමාලා සංඛ්‍යාව 18ක් තියෙනවා. එම පාඨමාලාවල නම් පිළිවෙලින් සඳහන් කරලා තියෙනවා දෙවන එමනුමේ. මෙම ආයතනයේ පැවැත්වීමට නියමිත පාඨමාලා අතර ශරියා නීතිය පිළිබඳ පාඨමාලාවක් ඇතුළත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ පාඨමාලාවට දීලා තියෙන නම තමයි Bachelor of Arts in Sharia in the Islamic Studies. ඊට ආයතනය සම්බන්ධ වත්මන් රජයේ ස්ථාවරයේ උපාධි පිරිනැමීමේ ආයතනයක් ලෙස අපි පිළිගැනීම සම්පූර්ණයෙන් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරලා තියෙනවා.
මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය රජයට පවර ගන්නවද නැද්ද කියන එක විතරයි මම අහන්නේ මේ ශාර්යා විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය.
අපි පවරගෙන අනිත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල වලට ඇතුළත් කරන ශිෂ්‍ය ශිෂ්‍යාවන්ගේ ප්‍රයෝජනය සඳහා ඒ විශාල සම්පත් අපි පාවිච්චි කරනවා.
මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ පාඨමාලාවක් හැටියට ශාර්යා නීතිය පාඨමාලාවක් හැටියට ඇතුළත් කරලා තියෙනවා. විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය මේ රජය පවරාගත්තේ නැත්නම් රජයට ඒ කියන්නේ මේ රටේ අහිංසක දරුවන්ට අන්තවාදී මතවාද සහිත ශාර්යා නීතිය උගන්වනවා. එහෙමනම් අනිකුත් පෞද්ගලික විශ්වවිද්‍යාලවලටත් මේ ශාර්යා නීතිය ඉගෙනවීමට මේ රජය ඉඩකඩ ලබා දෙනවද?
2015ට ඉස්සෙල්ලා පැහැදිලි වැඩපිළිවෙලක් තිබුණා. ඒ කියන්නේ මෙහෙම ශාර්යා නීතිය වෙන නොඑක් පාඨමාලාවල මුවාවෙන් විරසකයේ වෛරය වැපිරීමට අපි ඉඩ තිබ්බේ නැහැ. වෙන එකක් තමයි 2015 පස්සේ විදේශීය කතිකයන් ආවනේ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඉතිහාසය ගැන මොකක්වත් හොයන්න නැතුව එයාපෝට් එකේදී on arrival වීසා දුන්නා. ඉතින් අපේ කාලේ එහෙම කළේ නැහැ. කවුරු හරි වීසා එකක් ඉල්ලුවොත් මේ මද්‍රාසා මේවයි උගන්වන්න. ඒතකොට බුද්ධි අංශ බොහොම සැලකිලිමත්ව පරීක්ෂා කළා. ඒ පුද්ගලයාගේ ඉතිහාසය. බුද්ධි අංශය හා ආගමන විගමන දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව අතර ඉතාමත් සමීප සම්බන්ධයක් තිබුණා. ඒවා අහෝසි කළා. ඒ සියල්ලක්ම කළේ සංහිඳියාවේ නාමයෙන්. ඒක නෙවෙයි සංහිඳියාව. ඕනෑම කෙනෙකුට ඇවිල්ලා ඕනෑම පාඨමාලාවක් ඕනෑම තැනක උගන්වන්න අසීමිත නිදහසක් යහපාලන රජය දුන්නා. ඒකේ අස්වැන්න තමයි දැන් වපුරන්නේ.
දැන් ඔබතුමා කියන විදිහට ඔබතුමාලා තාම අධ්‍යයනය කරන අවුරුද්දක් මේ රටේ බලයට ඇවිල්ලා ශාර්යා නීතිය මේ රටේ උගන්වන්න දෙනවද නැද්ද කියන එක පිළිබඳව විශ්වවිද්‍යාලවල හෝ වෙනත් ආයතනවල
ඔබතුමාලා අවුරුදු 5ක් වුණාද මේ කවුද මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ කවුද ඇති කරේ 2015ට ඉස්සෙල්ලා මෙහෙම කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබුණේ නැහැ. ඔබතුමාලා ඇති කරපු ප්‍රශ්නේ විසඳීමට තමයි අපි දැන් උත්සාහ දරන්නේ. පටු පරමාර්ථ සඳහා යම් යම් අන්තවාදී කොටස්වල දේශපාලන සහයෝගය ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා මේ සියල්ලක්ම කළා. ඒ බලවේගවල සහයෝගය රජයට ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා මේ සියල්ලක්ම කරන්න ඉඩ දුන්නා.
Safeguard hand sanitizer නවතම නිෂ්පාදන පෙළ නිරෝගීමත් දිවයකට ලංකාවේ පළමු වරට හඳුන්වා දෙන Melbourne Veggie Cracker
Crunchy Veggie.
Now, the Government Medical Officers Association hopes that a real-time COVID-19 patient mapping system will come into operation by the end of the weekend, enabling regional authorities to take informed decisions pertaining to their respective localities. Colombo continues to be the worst hit during the second wave, with bulk of yesterday's infections being confirmed from the district, with the Colombo municipality being at high risk. Meanwhile, former director of the Criminal Investigation Department, Shania Besekar, who tested positive for the virus on Wednesday, has been transferred to the Infectious Disease Hospital in Angode on medical advice.
The second wave of COVID-19 has hit the country much harder, with virus-related deaths being confirmed almost on a daily basis. As such, 3 fatalities were recorded yesterday, 2 men of 80 and 87 years of age and a 73-year-old woman. The trio were from the areas of Colombo and Paliagoda. The 87-year-old had been receiving treatment at the Colombo National Hospital when he passed away yesterday. His cause of death is a bacteria infection caused with the contraction of COVID-19 and the exacerbation of a dormant lung disease. Meanwhile, the 80-year-old victim from Bambalapitiya had perished while receiving treatment at the Mulleriava Base Hospital. His cause of death is identified as high blood pressure, pneumonia, and cardiac arrest brought on by COVID-19. In the meantime, high blood pressure, diabetes, and a stroke brought on by the novel coronavirus have caused the death of the 73-year-old victim from Palyagoda. The trio of deaths pushed the island's COVID-19 death toll to 99, with 79 from that figure coming in the 27 days of November. Though Colombo had been identified as the new nexus of the virus for quite some time, with the onset of the second wave, there doesn't seem to be any respite. From the total of 559 cases reported yesterday, 253 were from the Colombo district, with the area of Halfsdorp falling within the Colombo municipality, recording 50 infections. Meanwhile, the number of infections identified from the Gampar district yesterday is 65. 136 infections were confirmed from 12 other districts, including that of Kalutara. From yesterday's tally of infections, 105 are those whose residence could not be proven. As things stand, 16,226 COVID-19 patients have recovered from the virus to date since it broke out in the island. It, however, leaves 5,954 patients on the treatment table. With health authorities now being armed with rapid antigen tests in addition to PCR test capabilities, the former was done on 98 persons in the area of Kesalvatha today. The results were swift and they revealed 21 positive cases. In the meantime, around 60 infections have been confirmed from the isolated areas in Atalugama yesterday, hiking the number of cases there to 207. Though that is the situation, there are allegations that people from the area of Atalugama are avoiding PCR tests. Whilst calling for cooperation of the public in the testing process, the Government Medical Officers Association highlights the importance of having a real-time COVID-19 mapping system in the island, which it says will enable relevant parties to make informed decisions in various localities.
We have continuously stressed that the risk communication and the assessment of the risk in each and every area of the country is more important when considering the curtailment of the spread of the disease of COVID-19. We continuously have stressed that a proper mapping system, using the GPS mapping system, going into details in each and every Ramanilidari division of the country and with the real-time data, but unfortunately for the last few weeks, it has not materialized. Director General Health Services has issued a circular to all healthcare workers and all laboratories to send the details to the DGHS office so that the mapping will be finished within a short period of time. We hope that the final touches of this all island map will be finished within the weekend and we will be able to see the map of the COVID patients by next Monday. Therefore, we can take decisions accordingly, especially for the head of the institutions, principals of the schools, and even for the ordinary citizens of this country. This mapping is very important. When we go out of our homes, we have a basic idea regarding the risk of our area. On the other hand, to assess the risk, we continuously pointed out doing the PCR as a random sample surveys to a maximum possible limit is very important. At the moment, our limit is around 12,000. We hope that this limit should be increased much more so that the random sample surveys could be continued in every part of the country so that the big clusters which suddenly emerges will be restricted. At the moment, we are experiencing a somewhat complex situation where certain subclusters are emerging within the country. Some of these areas were low risk areas previously, like for example the Samanture Kalmune area in the eastern province, but all of a sudden there were cases now coming up and the schools within the Kalmune education zone has to be closed down. Therefore, this sort of thing will happen in future also in any part of the country if we couldn't assess the risk. Also, we have requested the public to be more cooperative with the local health authorities, especially in the Bandaragam area.
Meanwhile, the President's media division says that a monitoring mechanism has been devised to ensure strict adherence to the ongoing home quarantine process for the contacts of the infected persons. The responsibility of monitoring is entrusted with a team of field officers, with the team comprising economic development officers, agriculture research and production assistants, Samurdhi development officers, family health services officers, Graminildaris, public health inspectors and police officers.
We'll see you shortly. Stay with us.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval arrived in Colombo today for Trilateral Maritime Dialogue among India, Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Sri Lanka will host the 4th National Security Advisor Trilateral meeting on maritime security cooperation with India and the Maldives today and tomorrow. India's National Security Advisor, who is accompanied by 5 high-ranking officers of the Indian Ministry of Defence, was greeted at the airport by Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva. The meeting is to take place after 6 years, with the last meeting being held in New Delhi in 2014. This will be the first NSA-level meeting on trilateral maritime security cooperation. Besides Doval, Sri Lankan Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne and Maldives Defence Minister Maria Didi will participate in the meeting. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's office tweeted that Doval paid a courtesy call to PM Mahinda Rajapaksa today. Doval also met Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne and discussed matters pertaining to the growing defence and security partnership between the two countries. In a tweet, the Indian High Commission in Colombo said that the two dignitaries agreed on several steps to further strengthen the valuable cooperation between the two countries, which also contributes to peace and security in the region. Now, the Easter Sunday terror attacks is a large-scale conspiracy and operation which targeted a select group. That is the view put forth by former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara as he concluded his testimony before the Presidential Commission probing the spate of terror. While giving evidence, he revealed that his access to the Malalgoda Commission report on the attacks was repeatedly denied and success did not come even via the Right to Information Act. Former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara testified for the 14th day before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry investigating the Easter Sunday attacks yesterday. At the outset, the chairman of the commission asked the witness, Ravi Seneviratne of the CID, had informed you that the discovery of explosives in Vanathavilluwa was linked to terrorist activity. Despite this, when the Director of State Intelligence forwarded you information from a foreign intelligence service on the 4th of April, why did you not give it more attention? Jayasundara replied, I do not remember the date Ravi Seneviratne informed me about Vanathavilluwa. However, I do remember that he told me. We'll look at the bigger picture now with all the facts after the attack. However, before the attack, the Vanathavilluwa incident was just one single incident. If this had been sent by the SIS along with the foreign intelligence warning, I would have had a better understanding and acted on the connection between this information and the discovery of explosives in Vanathavilluwa. I have to reiterate that the SIS director had not verified this information when it was distributed. He only noted that investigations were still ongoing. Jayasundara added, in such a situation, if I acted on this information and no such attack took place, I would have been questioned as to why did I act on unverified information. If the SIS had noted that their investigations had verified the information to have some truth to it, then I would have acted on it. Based on the information, I had no need to even speak to Nilantha. I would have had to speak to him only if I did not understand the contents. At the time, I did understand it. It stated that further investigations are underway. On the 20th of April, an informant had reported that Zahran was seen in Akkarepattu on the 29th of March. How does that constitute intelligence information? Following this, the witness was questioned over the report compiled by the Malalgoda Commission. He responded, even though President Maithripala Sirisena stated that he would release the Malalgoda report, he didn't do that. I applied for a copy using the Right to Information Act. However, I was not provided a copy. I then appealed this, but again I wasn't given the report. Earlier at this commission, the former president stated that he was in no way involved in having me sent on compulsory leave, and that neither did he have the power to do so. I would like to make it clear that the official letter informing me of being sent on compulsory leave came to me on the 29th of April, which was after the former president asked me to accept responsibility and resign after the attack. Following the end of his questioning, the former IGP requested permission to present further facts to the Commission. He stated, this was a large-scale conspiracy and operation targeted at a select group. There are some facts that I discovered much later that have not yet revealed. With that statement, all media personnel were requested to leave the room. Following this, the former IGP recorded a confidential statement that lasted around 40 minutes. Accordingly, Jayasundara's testimony before the Easter Commission ended yesterday. Now, former acting IGP C.D. Wickramaratne assumed duties as the 35th Inspector General of Police in Sri Lanka this morning at the police headquarters in Colombo. Wickramaratne joined the Sri Lanka Police in 1986 as a probationary assistant superintendent of police and has been in service for 34 years. In 2019, Wickramaratne was appointed as the acting IGP after then IGP Pujit Jayasundara was sent on compulsory leave following the Easter Sunday terror attacks. Several days ago, the Parliamentary Council verified the nomination made by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to appoint Wickramaratne as the new Inspector General of Police. Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Colombo, Professor Vajira Disanayake has been appointed as the President of the Sri Lanka Medical Council. According to the Government Medical Officers Association, the appointment has been made based on the recommendations of the 5-member committee of experts appointed by Health Minister Pavitra Wanyarachchi. GMOA Secretary Dr. Senal Fernando says that the experts committee had recommended to remove Professor Harendra De Silva, who had served as the President of Sri Lanka Medical Council, and other council members. Professor Vajira Disanayake is a pioneer in genetic and genomic medicine, biomedical informatics and bioethics in Sri Lanka. We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Bear with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the World Bank says that it is mindful of the challenges Sri Lanka is faced with in the prevailing COVID-19 era, but will also keep its eye on the opportunities for sustainable recovery. The World Bank's new country director for Sri Lanka, Nepal and the Maldives, Feroz Haddad Zervos, completed his first visit to Sri Lanka today, and he says that dialogue he had with various stakeholders gave the World Bank delegation a growing understanding of the Sri Lankan sustainable development storyline and aspirations.
The World Bank's new country director for Sri Lanka, Nepal and the Maldives, Feroz Haddad Zervos, completed his first visit to Sri Lanka today. He was joined by Chio Kanda, the new country manager for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, based in Colombo. Releasing a statement, Haddad Zervos was appreciative of the frank and productive conversations the duo had with government officials, the private sector and civil society during their visits to Colombo and the provinces. The conversations, he says, gave the World Bank delegation a growing understanding of Sri Lanka's sustainable development storyline and aspirations. The new World Bank management team had also paid courtesy calls on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Cabinet and State Ministers, the Central Bank Governor and secretaries and senior officials associated with the current World Bank programs in Sri Lanka. The delegation's visit included the Hambantota port and other facilities in the district to observe southern infrastructure development. Meanwhile, World Bank country manager for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Chio Kanda, stated that the World Bank is mindful of the challenges the country is facing in the COVID-19 era, but will also keep its eye on the opportunities for sustainable recovery. He added that the World Bank will leverage its knowledge, technical and financial resources to support Sri Lanka in order to build back better in the post-COVID era for inclusive and resilient growth. The statement says that the World Bank leveraged the existing portfolio and repurposed a significant portion to support the government's efforts to reduce the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that discussions are underway to further adjust the program to adapt to government's priorities and emerging development needs.
With the COVID-19 virus having dragged many sectors of the country through tough times, small and medium-scale enterprises received the lion's share of the virus economic turndown, or downturn I should say. As such, the past president of the Chamber of Young Lankan Entrepreneurs, Dinuk Hettiarachchi, says that he is content with the proposals presented in the budget SMEs, but he also says that the expected labour reforms have not been realised.
The small and medium-sized enterprises constitute 75% of Sri Lanka's businesses and contribute to 52% of the country's GDP. However, with the onset of the global pandemic COVID-19, even within Sri Lanka, many sectors including the SME sector was faced with severe challenges. As such, the SME sector was hopeful of positive measures via the Budget Proposal 2021. With this being the case, some of the provisions proposed through the budget was the allocation of 7.3 billion rupees to be granted for a credit facility for small and medium-scale enterprises. 1.5 billion rupees was proposed to be allocated to the Jaya Isuru concessionary loan scheme for small and medium-scale entrepreneurs. In addition to that, an allocation of 900 million rupees was proposed via the budget for the Run Aswin concessionary loan scheme for small-scale farmers, floriculture farmers, and entrepreneurs in ornamental fish-related businesses. However, are these proposals what the industry expected, and are they sufficient to address the issues that were brought on by COVID-19?
With regard to the SME sector, main thrust of this budget and the benefits that we would like to is the consistency of policy. I think that's one of the key factors that was displayed through the budget. We were all expecting a lot of austerity measures considering the global pandemic at the moment and the government raising taxes, which would have been really hard on the SME sector, very especially the SME sector, who's grappling with this COVID pandemic at the moment with cash flow issues, lack of business, and we needed some sort of direction which this government has shown now to us, that there is some consistency in policy, especially when it comes to taxation. The budget is talking about a 6% growth. We are being very positive with regard to these plans, but execution is key, because if we don't hit our numbers, we will not get the benefits that we envisage from these budget proposals. I was hoping there would be some element of labor reforms, especially considering the current pandemic situation where we have to manage their cadre, or maybe try to, in some of the businesses are doing well and some are not doing so well, so where we can maybe take some more temporary cadre into those companies and then try to focus our business in those areas and then later on shift it back. And some sort of flexibility for business owners was something which I thought would be addressed into, but it was not, and maybe those are some areas that we can hopefully discuss as an industry with the government and later on get involved in policy setting. With regard to entrepreneurs and what the budget has provided for the entrepreneurial community, there are a couple of proposals which are very, very interesting, and I think it's a good start. One is the fact that they are proposing to establish a development bank. Sri Lanka badly needs a development bank where they will help, they look at projects and fund the projects and make sure that the entrepreneurs get the needed capital in terms of taking their projects and ideas forward. And the other is also a very important point where the budget has proposed to give a startup loan to young entrepreneurs who finish their vocational education, and a loan up to 500,000 rupees to start their own business so that they can get the ball rolling. They have given a 1-year grace period and a 4-year settlement period. So these are good signs, because in any economy you need to get the entrepreneurs to be thriving, the local business has to be thriving, and the government is on a strategy to try to localize our exposure. They are talking about funding local, even the construction industry. They are talking about funding locally, looking into the food security in terms of agriculture, dairy, livestock. These are very good initiatives, and the entrepreneurial community will be very excited to see that these kind of proposals are initially implemented and then taken to the next level over the coming years.
Now, the global COVID-19 cases topped 60 million yesterday, reaching over 60 million, with over 1.5 million deaths, according to the latest figures from the World Health Organization. Meanwhile, the UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced a new plan for Christmas when the second lockdown ends next week, easing some restrictions. However, strict measures will be introduced under a 3-tier system, with more areas having to endure tougher restrictions in the coming weeks. Our UK correspondent Nalin Pereira has more on the developments from London.
Now, there have been more than 1.5 million confirmed cases since the beginning of the pandemic, with over 55,000 deaths. As an average, on the last week, around 440 people have died from COVID-19 every single day. This week, Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced the much-anticipated new plan for Christmas after the end of the second lockdown next week, easing some of the restrictions. However, Very strict measures will be introduced under the new three-tier system in England, and it is likely that more areas will have to endure tougher restrictions in the coming weeks. Under the new plans, shops and shopping centres will be opening again for Christmas shopping. Gyms, leisure centres and hairdressers will reopen for the benefit of the public health. For the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, indoor and outdoor spectator sports can start with a limited number of people attending, and 6 people will be allowed to meet outdoors. In another major development, it was confirmed that the vaccine developed by the scientists at Oxford University is very highly effective in preventing coronavirus, and the government has pre-ordered 100 million doses for the UK population. They believe that they can start the rollout at the beginning of the new year.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.